I'm sure we've all seen this picture in the Haslo elevator. It shows a Uyghur man over a map of Xinjiang and is supposed to represent the relevance of this region for the historic Silk Road and thus trade and economy. Today, people are talking about this region again, but for a different reason. Businesses, however, still play a relevant role in it. The Uyghurs are indigenous to the Xinjiang province in China and one of the 55 officially recognized ethnic minorities in the country. They are a Turkic ethnic group and many of them are of Muslim faith. Because of that, they always had a culturally stronger connection to the people of Central Asia than to Han Chinese people and often insisted on independence. Conflicts in Xinjiang are therefore nothing new. Since the annexation of the region to China by the CCP in 1949, the population has gone through constant ups and downs between self-government and repressive assimilation measures. Those interventions at the expense of Uyghur autonomy are seen as an important aspect of why the conflict escalated in 2009. Following repeated state-organized Han Chinese migration to the region, as well as cultural and economic discrimination, the Uyghur population rioted in the region's main city, Urumqi. Nearly 200 people were killed that day. After this event, the CCP began to crack down on the population with increased intensity. In their view, the following developments are measures to combat terrorism in the region. Chinese officials see the Uyghurs as potential extremists and a threat to China's unity. The measures are intended to reintegrate them into society and bring back stability. What sounds harmless here looks quite different in reality. With the help of the latest technology, millions of cameras are used to monitor the entire region. Regular ID scans, massive police presence and military checkpoints are commonplace. Also, many aspects of Muslim culture are increasingly disappearing, as open expression of Muslim faith is enough to be arrested. And arrested they were. Since 2017, an estimated 800,000 to 2 million Uyghurs have been arrested and brought to different areas all over the region. On this map, you can see the facilities they have been taken to. The CCP calls them re-education facilities. Other organizations call them prison or detention camps. Since there are many facilities involved, no general statement can be made about the treatment in each of them. However, a UN report from 2022 makes allegations based on interviews with former detainees. They found patterns of torture and other forms of cruel, inhumane and degrading treatment. In recent years, these re-education camps have reached a new phase as government agencies report that all their trainees have graduated. There's now increasing evidence that Uyghurs are being used for forced labor both inside and outside Xinjiang, which is also where international corporations get involved. Through ads like these, companies can request Uyghur workers from the camps. As a result, tens of thousands have been placed with companies all over China. And because it is a manufacturing nation, forced labor ends up in the supply chains of dozens of global companies that either don't want to control their supply chain or simply can't because of their enormous complexity. The think tank ASPI showed in a 2020 report that at least these 83 global brands benefit from Uyghur forced labor, either directly or through suppliers. Brands like Apple, Nike, and Volkswagen. We will now look at VW in more detail because they are a perfect example to understand other dynamics and drivers behind this case. For VW, forced labor is not a novelty. The company was founded by Ferdinand Porsche and the Nazis during the Second World War and used 20,000 concentration camp prisoners as workers. The company also used slavery-like practices in 1980 when Brazil was under dictatorship. The same can be said for their activities with the South Africans' apartheid regime. It is therefore not surprising that the German car maker is also associated with Uyghur forced labor, firstly through its suppliers, Hybrid Advanced Material, and directly through a factory in Xinjiang province that opened in 2013 as a cooperation with a Chinese partner. Although this looks like a simple recurring pattern, the problem goes much deeper. Despite announcing that they would only go to Urumqi for economic reasons, this motive never paid off. The factory produced only 20,000 cars and is hardly profitable. So the question is, why isn't VW closing the plant despite the massive negative press and international pressure? Well, because they can't. To secure Beijing's goodwill, the company agreed to a deal 15 years ago. They could build dozens of new factories in the richer east, but in exchange, they had to open a factory in Xinjiang. Additionally, the factory was also opened together with the state-owned SAIC company, which would never agree to close it. Furthermore, the Chinese market accounts for more than 40% of VW's sales. This is also an important reason for Apple and many other companies why they don't want to anger the Chinese government with political statements. Their dependency on the market is too big. Since the state of Lower Saxony holds a 20% stake in VW, the matter also has a political dimension. Actions of VW could not only be seen as actions of them, but as actions of Germany, whose economy as a whole is also highly dependent on China. Therefore, the politicians involved also keep a low profile. Cheap workers are not the primary reason why VW and other companies are associated with forced labor in Xinjiang. It is their complete dependence on an autocratic regime that makes them overlook the most serious human rights violations. Too much is at risk to say no, and their supply chains are too complex to monitor them responsibly. As China buys foreign ports and companies and reaches out to Europe through the New Silk Road, perhaps we should ask ourselves what this dependency will do to us as a society. Will we be able to defend our principles no matter what? Like more than 1,000 years ago, the New Silk Road will again pass through Xinjiang. However, the Uyghurs will not benefit from it this time. We probably will. The question is, do we want to?